A successful lawyer lives in a beautiful modern home with her two daughters and her husband Peter. One day Gustav, Peter's troubled teenage son from previous relationship, comes to live with them, and Anne forms an intimate bond with him that jeopardizes her perfect life. It starts on the bed, four of them is sleeping. Then morning kids are getting ready for school. One of the girls has noticed someone in the bathroom. Her mother says she is a client, and her husband argues with her that she is not allowed to bring her client home. Her client is a girl that abused or something by somebody and wants to put him in the jail. Next, she is reading a story for her daughters, and one of them asks about her dad and Gustav, what time they arrive. Gustav is Peter's son from his previous marriage. He moves in to live with his father's family. They got him some present and the girls some painting and love for him. Next, we see Anne getting her nails done by her sister and talking about Gustav and his school problems. She comes back home and finds Gustav's keychain or something that is belonged to Gustav, as we saw when he was tearing the presents on the table. In the house, when she is checking around, Gustav comes out of showering. Anne gets surprised he is home and asks about the book he got, but Gustav is not much interested. He's like, he doesn't want to get close to her, kind of. At night, as she's checking her work papers, her client, the girl, shows up at the door and wants to give up on the case if it is going to fail. Anne comforts her and says she must do it for the sake of other victims. Next day, as Anne comes home with her daughters, she notices her husband having argument with his son, Gustav. He hits outside, then in the jungle. They discuss before they go to sleep about Gustav and the time it may take till he get used to with living with them. Next day, we see Anne's client is walking out angrily. The case hasn't gone well as they wanted to, apparently. She comes home, where a burglary just happened before she arrives. She calls her husband and police, telling about missing stuffs. Another time, when she is doing laundry, she finds the keychain she has found earlier in this movie from outside of the house. She has put it in her bag and forgot to give it to Gustav until her bag got stolen. Then how come the keychain is in Gustav's jeans pocket? Unless Gustav was the robber, perhaps. She confronts Gustav and wants him to tell about everything to his father. Then they go to police to clear the case. Also, Gustav doesn't care about the whole thing as his reaction is intended, but Anne suggests the second option, that they will keep it between them, whatever it is, but in return, she wants him to end this business of being a tool around the house and to become a part of the family. Next day, they are all outside of the house having some barbecues and watching Gustav playing with girls, seemingly he getting adopted to become the part of the family. At night, he comes home late as Anne is working. Gustav brings a girl and introduces her to Anne. Then in the room, they both having fun on the bed loudly, which Anne gets distracted and starts to check herself in the mirror. Anyway, at her work, then at home, which not related to talk about, except another day Gustav is in the river with the twins and then asks Anne to join swimming. Anne is reluctant but decides to join them and having fun, the four of them, then come back late in the dark. Later, they both are having drinks and talking about the stuffs, and Gustav gives her a tattoo on the wrist. Another day, Peter and Anne have guests, and Anne is going crazy on drink and dancing. Their party lasts till late evening. Anne is sitting alone somewhere outside. As Gustav is going outside, notices her alone and asks her if she wants to join for a little walk and buying cigarettes. Then we see them in the bar instead, having drinks and talking about his mother, Amanda, and about the relationship between Anne herself with his father, Peter. Then Gustav decides to go, and Anne kisses him and says she will see him at home. She comes home later and gets confronted by the husband on why she has left him alone with all the people who he had to help them as guests. Then we see some close-up bros which can't be seen the person. Apparently he is one of her clients earlier in the movie who had problems with his foster father. Anne is feeling sad or maybe confused. I don't know. The background music is sad in that part in the movie though. Anyway, another night, as her husband is not home for some reason and after struggling to sleep, she decides to go to Gustav's room. They end up having what Anne was looking for. Next day, she decides to buy a computer for Gustav. Also, her husband is not happy about it for not telling him first. Fast forward, they spend a night in their cottage or vacation house, somewhere rather close to their house, and another client by Anne who has problems with her alcoholic father. Seeing Gustav reading a story for twins, Anne and Gustav having their affair every now and then, where almost they get caught once by Peter, her husband. Another time, Gustav is asking questions and records on a tape as he always does, recording I mean. He asks about the amount of men she has been with and the first man that she has slept with. She says he was the one who she can't tell to anyone about it. Another day, they celebrate their twins' daughter's birthday. Gustav sticks to Anne and starts to kiss her, and Anne's sister notices them. Her sister leaves immediately by saying he's just a child. But Gustav is unaware of Anne's sister that earlier notices him kissing Anne, so he doesn't know what is happening and why Anne treating him poorly and doesn't let him get close to her, because it was Anne that Gustav changed his behavior in the first place. Now he is back to the same previous and troubled Gustav. We see them in the jungle. Anne is convincing Gustav to end this story they had. When she comes back, her husband says he wants to take Gustav to the cottage to spend some time with him and says her sister has called him. Anne panics thinking of her sister may told her husband about what she saw at birthday party, but she didn't. The next day she goes to her sister and begs her not to talk about what she saw to anyone. Her sister is disgusted at her and doesn't assure her whether she keeps her mouth shut or not. So Anne is still worried. She leaves her daughter somewhere with somebody to play. Then she goes back to bring her daughters. She crashes when she gets a call and struggles to reach her phone, but nothing serious happens. She walks home with her twins and notices her husband and Gustav are already home from cottage that they were supposed to be there for some days unless something has happened. Her husband talks about his time and talking with his son Gustav, and Gustav has told him about the affair he had with Anne, his wife, but Anne denies everything and starts to blame her husband for accusing her and says Gustav hates her because of taking Peter from his mother. Also she mentions that robbery that happened long time ago in their house. She tells him that it was Gustav and she leaves for some day and wants him to get rid of Gustav when she comes back. Then we see her getting rid of that tape that Gustav had from her talking about bunch of stuffs which Peter should not get to it. Then they are gathered around and Peter accusing his son for lying and wants him to choose where to live other than living with them because they can't trust him after all. Gustav is confused and tries to defend himself, but his father has decided to believe his wife over his son. Gustav leaves for a boarding school. Much later, Gustav visits Anne in her office and threatens her that if she doesn't tell his father the truth, he will report about the illegal affair of a child having slept with an adult. But she replies that nobody will ever believe him and that he has no proof. Another time, at night, when Peter is sleeping and Anne is still awake, Gustav bangs on her door. Anne goes down to talk with him. He wants his father but gets rejected by Anne, saying his father can't do anything for him because he's not a part of family anymore. He starts to kiss her and she pushes him away on the floor. He starts crying, which is heartbreaking for some reason. At a party for Anne, her sister is attended. Anne thanks her, but still her sister is disappointed of Anne. Her husband Peter is contacted about Gustav missing from school. Next, he's getting ready to go because he contacted by the police. When he comes back, he brings the news of Gustav somewhere in the jungle around the cabin. He has frozen to death and his body is found after months. Anne is crying in the bathroom because mostly it was her fault and sees an illusion of Gustav behind her. Then she starts to talk or maybe about to confess. After saying his death wasn't Peter's fault, he violently shuts her up. Then we see them getting ready to go for the funeral.